Welcome to Lakeside Commons Education Garden here at the Campbell County Cooperative Extension Service. I'm Sarah Stoltz, the horticulture agent here, and thank you for stopping by. In the hot, humid summer, July month, I want to really kind of cool it down and talk about shade gardening. It's one of my favorite types of gardening. And what a perfect day. So I just want to highlight a few things here for you today. You can see we have some beautiful trees that surround us. And sometimes when I go to landscapes on site visits or folks are calling in, they say, we have a beautiful, mature, large tree. It's been there for 30 plus years old. We can't get grass to grow under it anymore, or it's become a challenge. There's a lot of moss, or it's thinning out. There's a lot of weed population. They've seeded multiple times. So I think you know where I'm going here. So I always suggest, well, you're right, under a mature tree, even if you thin the canopy out, meaning you kind of thin out some of the branching like you would thinning out your hair to allow more light penetration down into the landscape, sometimes that's not enough for your turf to thrive. So I suggest maybe thinking about turning it into a shade garden. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle around the drip line of the tree. Maybe kind of, you know, even if you have a few trees next to each other, thinking about how you can connect those two with some really pretty beautiful curves and lines. Not a full circle, or a perfect circle, I should say. Maybe not even mulching. You know, mulching is great aesthetically and it has many benefits to the tree, but maybe adding a little bit more texture and interest into the landscape by adding a shade garden. So I just want to highlight a few plants that we have here in our shade garden. We have a few different types of shade gardens here, and I encourage you to swing by, take a stroll through our education gardens, pack a picnic, definitely bring you some water during these hot months, and you know, jot things down or take pictures of our signs. Most of our plants do have the labels. I encourage you to jot those down or take pictures. Don't lift them out of our garden. Unfortunately, we've had some of that over the years. So ferns are great. I want to start with that because it's by far one of my favorites. And we have this lady in red fern where the stem is red, and the fronds are beautiful. It's more upright. It does kind of fan out a little bit, but I really love this. In a shade garden, I like to keep things simple. You know, maybe a white garden or a gray garden, especially if this is an area where you're gonna sit out in the evening. Whites and grays really brighten up that garden. It makes the garden look bigger. And also softening with some green tones of ferns and some hostas will lighten up that area as well. So start with a few ferns. We have this crested lady fern over here. It's a little dainty, but the fern, the fronds are kind of crumbly almost, and it has a really neat interest. We have a few other ferns scattered throughout the garden, so please come take a look. One of my other favorite shade-tolerant plants are the corabelles or the heucheras. There is tons of them out in the landscape, and you can find them out in the nurseries. Different foliage colors. Now they do have a dainty little spike of flower that will emerge, but me, I really, you know, I'm attracted to the different color foliage. We have greens like lime greens. We have almost a burnt color. We have the burgundies. We have greens and grays, all different shades. So again, you can really have fun with the foliage color and not necessarily, you know, the bloom where we typically think of gardening, and that's more of in the sun. But thinking of the shade, we're looking more of texture and different colors that we can use with the foliage. Okay. Another very common plant that a lot of people probably have in their garden is the hosta. And you know, I have never been a fan of hosta, but I contribute my liking now to Terry Turner, our hort technician here. She loves hosta, and the fun thing about hosta are their names. They are so funny. So mini skirt hosta, this is a tiny little one that we have. We have a Marilyn Monroe hosta. Lakeside Sassy Sally. So the names are just hilarious. They make me laugh. So again, I invite you out here. We have tiny little ones. They're the Minnie Mouse series. We have large foliage varieties. Most of them will flower, and so they are attracted to the bees are attracted to those as well. They don't last long. Once they pretty much bloom, then they don't last long in the landscape. They tend to be purple or light purple or almost white. So we have a whole hillside here of hostas along with some hydrangeas. Hydrangeas is another beautiful plant to incorporate into your shade garden. Different sizes, different colors. In another shade garden, we have an oak leaf hydrangea that has been here for many, 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 many years, and that's able to tolerate a little bit more sun and into shade. Again, we have different types of hydrangeas here. And a lot of people have asked, well, I want the hydrangea that has the blue color or the pink color. And yes, that is true that it has something to do with your soil pH, but we have a lot of different creams and whites, and we don't mess with the pH here. We just let nature take their course, and whatever blooms we get, we are satisfied with the color. A few other plants that are great for a shade garden are some understory trees. The redbud is a wonderful understory tree, and that is great for many reasons, but it's an early blooming tree. And so before a lot of these hosta and heucheras and ferns are emerging from the soil, the redbuds are blooming, and they have a beautiful red, pinky, and white color to the bloom, and they bloom before the foliage emerges. So again, there are plenty of plants that you can incorporate into your shade garden. We have tons of information on how you can design and incorporate different plants, but for a shade garden in particular, I recommend keeping it simple. It can get very overwhelming, and think of curvy lines, just like in nature. Thinking of maybe some art pieces, and behind me we have installed recently some art pieces that our volunteers of the Master Gardener here in Campbell County have installed. So throughout our whole garden, we've tried to incorporate more art pieces. Few reasons being, we want to make sure that there's an interest in our gardens all season. So even if you don't see a beautiful flower, but maybe you can see some beautiful artwork. And all of our art installations recently that we've installed are made by our volunteers here from our Master Gardeners. And so please take a look, come out and explore. And of course, if you have any questions about plants, if you're not sure what's going on with the plant, maybe it's looking a little sickly, reach out to us. That's what we're here for, and we'll be glad to help you. Until then, happy gardening.